I don't know a single person who doesn't love Adirondack chairs. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I made this one, along with the footstool and the end table. So stay tuned. Alright, I'm going to start this off by building the Ottoman. Now, for all three pieces, I'm going to be using a wood called Red Grandis, which can be found at Rockler. And so can the plans that I'm using to build this off of, as well as the templates. If you're interested in building your own set, there is a link for you down below. I first began by cutting all of my boards to length at the miter saw. And as I would cut a board to length, I would label it with a pencil. This came in handy when I then moved over to the table saw to cut all of my boards to width. I would look at what I labeled the board, then look at the plans to see what the board needed to be cut to. I did vary from the plans just slightly. Instead of building everything from 2x material, I decided to build everything from 1x material except for the legs, which I wanted to stay as 2x material. And in order to achieve that, I just glued two 1x boards together. And I just set those up in clamps overnight to dry. Next, I printed off and cut out the templates needed for these parts. And if you're going to be using these templates over and over again, then you could very well take this paper template and transfer it to something like cardboard that will be a little bit more durable. I would set the pieces in place and trace around it, then come back with a jigsaw to cut it out. Before moving on to assembly, I brought out my work center so that I could utilize the router table. I rounded over all of the edges that the plans called out. I could pick up a board and see what it was labeled, then reference the plans to see what edges needed to be rounded over. Alright, at this point all prep work is done, so now on to assembly. Now, even though I'm not showing it, I did pre-drill and countersink all of the holes before driving in the screws. This makes sure that your wood is not going to crack, as well as giving the wood a nice countersunk profile for the screw to sink into. After getting both of the front and back slats attached, then I started filling in the center. Last step for the Ottoman, I brought out my templates once again and marked the location where the legs needed to go. You can mark the top and bottom of the dash line and it'll line up the legs perfectly for you. And now we have a completed Ottoman. Alright, that is one piece down, two more to go. Next up is going to be the end table. On this piece especially, I really utilized these right angle clamping jigs. Because even though there's only a few pieces and it's very simple, if it's not square then it can give you a little bit of trouble. So I would make sure to clamp the jigs in place just to hold the material square while I was securing it down. And on this piece, I once again made the legs 2x material and kept everything else the 1x material. After repeating the process and making an identical side, I started adding in the stretchers. And the plans call for these to be attached from the outside, but I went ahead and attached them from the inside, just to hide as many screws as I possibly could. Okay, base is done, now to add the top. I first made sure that all of the pieces were square on the base, then came back with a speed square to mark off my screw locations, which just gives it a nice clean look. Now on to making the final piece, the chair. I pulled out all of the cardboard templates and traced them on my boards. And these actually have crosshairs that indicate where screw locations need to be, so that you can use a punch to transfer the locations directly from the template to your board. And this definitely makes the assembly process go quicker. After cutting out and rounding over the pieces, I started with the assembly. Again, pre-drilling and countersinking the holes before driving in the screws. I started off by attaching the front slat, then moved to the back in order to help keep the structure square. The table I was working on got a little bit small while trying to attach the legs, so I moved over to the garage floor quickly to attach these. But then I moved it back to my table so I could work in the nice weather and continued attaching the remaining pieces, which included building up the back of the frame for the chair and these armrest support, which you can utilize a speed square to make sure you're getting it on there nice and straight. When it came time to attach the back slats, I ended up making a spacer to make sure that these were all spaced nice and evenly. I didn't have a board the thickness that I needed, so I ended up just shaving off one side at the table saw, and it worked like a champ. I would hold it at the bottom and secure the slat in place, then move the spacer up to the top of the slab and secure it as well. When moving around to the back of the chair to secure this brace, I found that a clamp in between the slats works perfectly for holding it in place. And I made sure to measure the left and right, just to double check that this was nice and level before securing it down. And this thing is starting to look like a chair, just needs a seat. So next I started securing all of the remaining slats along the bottom. Once again utilizing that spacer that I made for the back slats. Then the last thing before calling it done, I moved it down to the ground and secured the armrests. And that is going to complete all 3 pieces. Time to kick up those feet and relax. I'm April Wilkerson. Thanks for watching.